Welcome to Extremely Valid Points.
We are three business owners and friends who enjoy practical, real-life discussions about business, marketing, and creativity.
Your hosts are Nathan and Jenny Sala, the owners of World Light Media, a digital marketing agency focused on helping organizations grow through online leads.
And Dave Wilkins, the owner of Ellipsis Production Co., a video production company that specializes in creating meaningful content for businesses and nonprofits.
We hope you enjoy today's episode. And along the way, we just might happen to make some extremely valid points.
Welcome to our show. Today we have a special guest, Michael Manjarrez. Michael Manjarrez is an investment advisor with Wayland Financial, and he also is a fellow podcaster. Thanks for joining us today, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. So tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born on a Saturday, 10:42 a.m. I'm an investment advisor. You asked financial planner, investment advisor. Those terms are really funny for us in the industry, which I hate saying something like that. That sounds so like I'm being a jerk. But I do financial planning and investment management.
Okay.
Those are the two, I guess, disciplines about Wayland Financial and what we do. I've been a podcaster now for almost 2 years to the day with my sister.
Oh, well, that's an accomplishment. That's great.
Thanks. We have, 20 some odd episodes. It's called Seriously, though, because we're siblings and we talk about just sibling things like family and cocktails and food and wine and movies. Seriously, though, we also talk about the important things like how to invest and how to save your money. And Lisa talks about marketing and career advice. And so we kind of bring all of those things together. And we think we're really funny often. And so there's a little bit of, our own personality and our own spin on all of these things.
Yeah, I love how you guys kind of blend your two different disciplines together and then just your personal lives. It's a great mix, and so we're glad to have you here on the show to kind of give us some financial perspective.
Well, I'll do what I can, but we our disciplines overlap very much, and then actually we share some clients even, which is kind of fun. We're very professional about not letting our clients know that that they're shared, but usually they tell us like, I'm seeing your sister later. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, that sounds awesome. So it's kind of fun.
That's and your great. Sister, she's your twin, is that right?
No, she wishes. She wishes.
Okay, I don't know where I got that idea. Well, then in that case, who's older?
She's older.
Oh, okay.
Which a lot of people don't. A lot of people think that I'm older just because I'm taller, and I wear a tie. Sorry, I hit the table. But I'm actually 4 years younger.
A tie will do that to you, I guess.
Yeah, a tie will do that to you, and a beard.
Do you guys have other siblings as well?
No, it's just us.
Okay.
It's just us. Growing up, we had fish intermittently, and that was it.
Are the fish on the podcast ever, or are they?
No, sadly, they've never made a debut on the podcast.
So, tell us, Michael, what kind of problems do you like to solve for your clients? What do you love to help them with?
I'd say the number one thing that we help clients solve is confusion, and that is that the financial world is vast. That sounds so dramatic, but it is. There's a lot of things that go into your finances. We often say that we play quarterback between your CPA and your attorney. And so there's a lot of legal things, estate planning, trusts, and wills. And then there's taxes, tax deductions and tax forms. And if you know a CPA, give them a hug. Because they know a lot of things that we are so glad that they know. But then, there are just everyday things like college planning for your kids, saving for retirement, which is probably one of the number one things that we focus on. And there's a lot all those things put together are just simply confusing. So we solve that problem where we try to make it easy for people to understand where their financial plan will get them, because we want it, we want something to be tangible for clients, and yeah.
I think so much of the time we have a hard time conceiving of a vision for our finances, right? And what our goals are or how to even get there.
Yeah, it's amazing how many clients come to me and I'll ask them, okay, what are your goals? Where do you want to be in 1 year, in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? And a lot of people, they don't know. And that's completely fine, completely normal. But it's my job to sort of try to uncover that as best I can and work out a roadmap. Say, okay, if you make this much money, you spend this much money, and you save this much money, and then of course you have taxes. Where do you think we try to predict where they might be financially in those timeframes? 1, 3, 5 years, and 10 years out. Of course, a big part of that. Insurance is another thing I didn't mention. We don't sell insurance, but we definitely give advice on insurance. So. Preparing for the unexpected is a big part of what we do also, because you never know if somebody is going to, die too soon, mm-hmm. which sadly we talk a lot about death. But because everyone dies. It's true. Whenever there's a transfer of assets from one generation to the next, that can be difficult to administrate, and it's also not every family is the same. So we talked about my sister. Luckily, we get along really well. If something were happening to my parents, we know what's going to happen. My parents have it very well, laid out. But not every family has that. Not every family has that kind of communication. So we work. That's when we would work with an attorney, estate planning attorney, to make sure that those pieces are in check. What was your question?
I think just kind of talking about that vision casting piece and helping us to determine. A lot of times I think, we may not even really have goals, or
right.
Maybe something short term, but it's hard to sometimes project out and think down the road, like preparing for passing away, those kinds
totally.
of things.
And what's really funny also is whenever we build a projection or some sort of financial plan for the future, we do so knowing that it's going to be wrong. And not that we aim for error or for mediocrity, but life happens. Not everything happens the way you might plan it out on paper. And so we do our best job to try to figure out if there are certain parameters or certain constants that we can depend on, especially when it comes to the stock market, because investments is really kind of the underlying thing, right? We're going to invest your money for a certain amount of time. We don't know what's going to happen with the economy. We don't know what's going to happen with business. We don't know when you might need money. We don't know when you might receive money from an inheritance or from a bonus at work. And then now, things are different. Things are changing. So it is kind of funny setting out a path when we know that there's going to be a lot of course adjustments as we keep moving forward. And so we meet with our clients on a regular basis, quarterly, in fact. And so every quarter, sometimes those meetings are really short and smooth, but sometimes it's like, okay, Michael, I have a son who's no longer going to go to college. Now they want to, go to work full time. What do I do with that college fund? And, okay, so there's a course adjustment that needs to be made. And so we'll figure out what to do based on those changes as they come up.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great.
And I imagine, expecting that the plan is probably not going to be completely accurate. It's better to have a plan, right, than to not have one at all, and to have like a direction you're moving in and a course you're going towards, so that you can then adjust as you need. And I feel like in business, that's how we are all the time. We're always setting goals, and then sometimes we don't meet those goals because things happen, but we're still making some kind of progress better than if we hadn't done anything at all. So.
Right. Sometimes there's a global pandemic,
Right.
and everything gets thrown out, and that's fine. That's you roll with it, you adjust and you pivot and you figure out what to do next.
Exactly.
How did you decide that this is what you wanted to do with your life?
That's a good question. I guess it would go back to growing up. So my grandmother worked in banking. So she worked in HR for a bank, which eventually became Bank One and then Chase, after all those mergers and stuff. So I remember hearing the phrase, "You need to make your money work for you." And I never knew what that meant. As a 8-year-old, I would think, okay, here I have a dollar bill. How can this dollar sweep something or repair something?
Right.
Or how can I make it clean my room? I didn't know what that meant. And she taught me a lot about the stock market, and she taught me how to ladder CDs and all sorts of things with banking and that sort of thing. We had a church friend who was a stockbroker at Solomon Smith Barney, and my dad took me over there. He said, okay, we're going to give you a few dollars, Michael, to invest with Gary. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I was in high school at the time, and I would drive there after school and talk to Gary, or he had a business partner also, and they would teach me all kinds of stuff. And they gave me books, and I learned about the Rule of 72, which I'd never actually use day to day, but it's a really great concept. And I thought, this is so cool. Like, why doesn't everybody do this? And then I learned what a financial planner is about that same time in high school. And then I went for a career in banking, didn't like that, sidestepped to marketing. And then I ended up back in finance. So it was kind of this years-long, journey of knowing that I really like this one thing. I'm not sure how to be able to do this thing the way I want to. So I had to bounce around a little bit to figure out exactly where I fit and where I was able to do that. And that's where I found Wayland and also the previous firm I was at. But, you can get into the weeds about what a financial advisor is and what they do and what they sell and what they don't sell and what they offer and how they make their money. But I've kind of come full circle with working at a few different places, and we are a registered investment advisor. So we don't sell stuff. We don't sell financial products, which is a big differentiator for us.
Gotcha.
And we give advice, and we're paid by fees from our clients. So, it took me a long time to learn those things and learn those little ins and outs and idiosyncrasies and quirks of different types of firms and, and that's – so in a nutshell, that's sort of – it started a long time ago. And I'm really happy to be where I am because it's where I wanted to be when I was 16 years old, oddly enough.
I love that. I love how your family, your grandmother, your parents, they all sort of seeded this idea. I don't know if they saw it in you when you were very young and they're like, this guy was born to work with investments and securities. We need to encourage him along that path, or if they were just trying to help you get some general knowledge and you just fell in love with it.
Well, I remember one time watching the news with my dad. I don't remember how old I was. Maybe I was in high school. Maybe I was 27. I don't know. But at one point, my dad pointed to the news and it says, it talks about the Dow Jones and where the markets are landed for the day. And my dad was like, wait, so you know what these numbers mean? And I'm like, yes, sir, I sure do. And he was like, oh, okay. And, my parents, they've learned a lot from me over the years just about what I do because it is convoluted sometimes, all the ins and outs of the business. And it wasn't until maybe last year sometime my dad was like, hey, Michael, I think I know what you do. I think I know how it works.
Yeah, because it is kind of this abstract thing, the market, and right, it just seems like it's kind of just numbers out there.
Right, it's like numbers. What I tell people, sometimes people ask me what I do for a living, and if I don't really want to engage in conversation, I just say I watch numbers move. But oddly enough, those numbers mean something and they do something on a global scale. And so pinpointing exactly why they move or what makes them move or what that means for you it's taken a lot of learning to figure out all those things.
Right.
So
Would you say, I mean, I know you've been pursuing like additional licenses, right? Or career, development?
yeah, so because I've worked in other in banking and so on and so forth, I've had several licenses over the years, but what I'm working on right now is my CFP. So it's to be a certified financial planner, which it's not a requirement by any means to do this work, but it is a requirement from my firm that everybody has this designation in order to. And really, what it is, it's sort of like the we see it as doctors go to med school. Mm-hmm. If you're a financial planner and you're serious about what you want to do, then this designation is what you should get. And it's very involved. There's nine sections that you study for, and it's a big exam. It's a 6-hour exam. It's pretty rigorous, and you have to have so many hours of experience in order to actually have the designation. So I'm taking the exam in March, and I finished my coursework in September, and it worked out really well for me to do this during COVID because everything was pretty much shut down. I couldn't go to the movies or anything, so I was like,
forced you to stay.
I'll read about retirement planning instead, and it's a lot of material, but luckily. I'm preaching about how great my firm is. I realize I don't have a tattoo or anything. Don't worry.
Not yet.
Not yet. But luckily, I have really great coworkers, and they all have the designation. So I'm able to go to them and be like, "Hey, what does this mean?" Or how do you explain, Section 179 to a client or whatever? And they've all been there. They all have the experiences so they can help me along, which is really, really nice. It's better than going at it alone, because that would be a real drag. It would be a lot of work.
Absolutely.
It is a lot of work anyway. So,
yeah, it sounds like a great culture there that you feel just the openness to be able to ask for help and the assurance that they'll give it to you.
Yeah, I've had plenty of other jobs where I didn't have that. So it took me a while to actually believe them when they said, "Hey, we're willing to help you. Hey, if you need something, let us know. We're here to encourage you." Because, other places, maybe they say that, but they don't mean it. So,
that's what they want to think about themselves,
right.
But it's not reality.
So I've experienced that before. So at first I was like, "Are you guys sure? Like, are you like, what if I make a mistake?" That kind of thing. And they're pretty cool. So
yeah. Well, speaking of that, do you have? We kind of wanted to, one of the things we'd like to talk about is one of your biggest. Horror stories, or is there anything that like, man, this was a big challenge in your career, and then maybe any like particular win of like, oh man, I really helped someone achieve this, but maybe starting with like a real hurdle or challenge you faced.
I can't say I have a single hurdle.
Yeah,
and part of that is because even though I work for a firm, I'm very much I'm my own. I have my own book of business that I manage. And that's how I get paid.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes the biggest hurdle is my own psychosis. Is that the right word? My own.
Sure.
I mean, it's a clinical term.
I'm not a wordsmith. I'm a financial
numbers
planner.
guy.
Anyway, it's getting in my own head about, okay, should I be doing this? I've been working and studying for months on end, and I don't feel like I'm making any progress. Is this really for me? And when you're at my previous firm, there's a phrase they say: "Eat what you kill." So, if you wanted to make money, you had to go get it.
Oh yeah.
And there's a little bit of that where I am now, but not as much. So sometimes it's just like, okay, I know that I need to pay my mortgage. How can I do that this month? And that can be a little bit nerve-wracking. And in some ways, I'm an entrepreneur in some ways, because I need to pay my bills. And if I have a lousy month or a lousy week, even, then that can really get to you. It can really mess with your head. So sometimes I have these elated moments where I'm like, I love my job. It's so awesome. Everybody should do this work. And then other days I'm like, what am I doing? Maybe I should just go work at Hot Dog on a Stick or something. This is
Right.
This is lousy. I'm a fraud and that kind of thing. So I think just, I get your question is about a failure. I feel like I've had more failures just sitting in my desk thinking too much
Yeah.
than actually,
Not so much like a mistake that you've made with a client thing,
Right.
but just on a personal, trying to motivate yourself or
Yeah.
I think that struggle is, while it's unique, I think it's also like pretty common for entrepreneurs to feel that way. I can't tell you how many times I've said to myself, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Why don't we just go get a job somewhere?
I hear Hot Dog on a Stick is hiring.
Because then at least we'd have that steady income that you can rely on. And maybe it wouldn't be a lot, but it would be like safe.
Totally. Yeah, safe. Yeah, because I could go work at Merrill Lynch and potentially make pretty good money. But I probably wouldn't be able to sleep as well at night. And so I'm struggling in other ways. I'm struggling while I'm awake.
Right. Yeah.
You kind of pick your battles in some ways, and I know that this is the struggle that I want to, and it won't be a struggle for long. Eventually, I'll have a book of business, and it'll be great. People don't get into financial planning because it doesn't pay well. The earning potential is pretty good if I can go out and find the right clients. Not that I want to sit here and talk about my own money, but
Well, yeah. So, I mean, what do you have any advice for people that are entrepreneurs and a solopreneur, or you're not dependent on a salary? What kind of advice do you give to those kinds of people?
yeah, that's an easy one. And because this is something that I've had to do a lot for myself, is don't get in a rut for too long. Figure out what it takes for you to get out of a rut. Everybody's a little bit different. I went to the gym last night for the first time in months, and afterwards I called a friend, and I was like, I went to the gym. I worked out for 30 minutes, and I feel like $1 million. I can just carry my car home. And I told her, I was like, I should have done this months ago. Like, I'm not a physically fit person. I'm not like a gym rat by any means. But man, that felt amazing. And I should have done that a long time ago. Certain friends that I have are just really, really encouraging and uplifting. Certain coworkers are really encouraging more than others. So I know if I'm in a bit of a rut, or if I'm stuck on a problem or something, I know, I need to go talk to this person because they're the ones who are really going to help me pull myself up. Other people, they might help as well. They might help me with my problem, but the other people will help me with me a little bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my, get in a rut. That happens. You're going to have a crappy day, but don't have a crappy day on a Thursday and let it bleed into Friday, because then now your whole weekend is ruined.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's really interesting that you have this marketing background, because you said you used to work in marketing. And a lot of our audience are in the marketing world and business owners and the entrepreneurial world. So I'm wondering if there's any overlap between your marketing past, and does that help you in what you're doing now at all?
So the answer is no. and I'll explain why. Because I worked in marketing for 3 years or so, but I worked on the finance side of things.
Gotcha.
So it was more of accounting than marketing.
Okay.
But one thing that's interesting for someone like me, or even other solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, is that you might be like, I might be a really good financial planner, but if I'm not also good at marketing myself in any capacity, then I'm gonna starve. So everyone needs an element of marketing or an element of sales. And sales is a bad word at our firm. We don't like using the word sales because it feels gross. And you equate it to like these insurance salesmen that take you to a steak dinner. And then afterwards they give you a PowerPoint presentation deck and make you sign up, Just as
What's wrong with that approach?
I've been to those, and the steak is usually pretty good. It's usually decent. It's free.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing that I've not that I worked in marketing, but a good thing I was around it. So I learned a few little tricks about. Not that I have a great LinkedIn profile. Don't look at it, but it's better than it would be if I had it. Gone to a little webinar that the firm had on LinkedIn profiles. Again, mine is not stellar, but it's just better than it would be otherwise. And there are perfectly good people who are really, really good at marketing and can be successful in their given career, whether they're a financial planner or an attorney or a CPA or whatever. And maybe they're not as good at their skill, but they're really good at the marketing piece.
Interesting.
Which is kind of funny. I remember talking to a financial planner here in town. It was actually my friend's dad. And he is a successful business. I went to him and said, how did you do it? How did you build up this business from nothing and grow it to what it is today? And I asked him about marketing, and I was like, did you do commercials? What did you do? He was like, oh, no, I didn't do any of that stuff. That's just a waste of time. And he had this whole thing about, all the great financial planners, all the financial planners in Fresno that are really good at marketing arguably aren't that good at financial planning.
Interesting.
So he had other tips and tricks for us, and really our business is mostly referral based. So we talk to a lot of accountants, a lot of CPAs, and attorneys, and that's how we mostly generate our business, which is, a good way. It's very, our reputation is pretty good in town, our firm reputation. So hopefully that speaks more than a commercial.
Totally. That's a theme that's come up on the show so many times, almost every time. Maybe we should rename the podcast to the Authenticity Podcast, because we talk about that authenticity component, just being who you are, and how that's the best sales technique. That's the best way to build relationships, is just being who you are, and caring about other people, and eventually, that will grow your business. It's not as fast as some of the other methods out there, but I think it has the most staying power.
Yeah, and you know what? It wasn't until I started my podcast with Elisa, for Seriously Though, when I really got comfortable putting myself out there. Because it's a podcast with my sister. Okay, it's going to be pretty genuine. Like I can't front with my sister.
Yeah, she's going to call you on it, right?
Like I'm 150% Michael on that podcast. And we put it out for the world. And so people would engage with me because they'd listen to the podcast, like as if they were. I was like, oh, this is actually an interesting consequence of the podcast was me really being okay with, well, this is it. Like here's Michael. There
Love
it is.
me or hate me.
Love me or hate me. That's the podcast. It's just that's it. Anything I tell you in person, you're not going to believe. You're going to believe the podcast, and that's 100% real. So we're all, that's it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great because it is hard, and yeah, even in being in this world, like I struggle the same or more of like I don't want to be out there. I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to, right? And wanting to feel authentic and genuine. And I think the thing is that, there are great tools now, like a podcast, where you can just be yourself, and it's actually really valuable because people can actually get a sense of who you are, a little bit to some degree, and think like, oh, I like Michael. I think I could connect with him, and I'd feel comfortable talking about my finances with him. Or, there's some other people you'd probably go, I don't know if I really would want to talk to that person. And so, it's just just allowing yourself to be who you are and have people get a chance to know you.
Yeah, I had a colleague tell me once, Michael, if a client wants to sit and have a beer with you, it's probably a good sign that they're going to stick around for a while. So, now that I have beer with all my clients, I would like to. But,
That's the secret.
But that's sort of one of those, like, if I do have one client who signed up from the podcast. She heard the podcast first. I've never met her in person, actually.
Wow.
And she said, Michael, I feel like we've already had 10 conversations because I've heard 10 podcast episodes from you.
Yeah.
And I was like, great. What's your first name again? But she felt like she knew me. And she was already, so everything I had to say, everything that I have said, as her advisor, she's like, oh, yeah, like this just, like, yeah, I know who you are and how you say things, and I'm on board. So
you're probably down the road a little further than a normal, right? Cold
totally.
transaction. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sounds like the dream client,
She's great.
Just to say, like, I trust you, whatever you say.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this on the topic of authenticity. How often do you find when people come to you that they are a little bit nervous to tell you about their financial situation? Are people ever afraid that you're going to like give them a slap on the hand or tell them they're doing things wrong? Are they ever afraid to tell you like, I don't have any savings or, tell us about that.
Yes. I get that a lot. And what it kind of stems from, it's people comparing themselves to others. And I have another client and she does very well for herself, and she wants to know how she measures up compared to other people her age. And I'm like, look, you're doing good. There's no doubt about that. You're doing great. So let's just keep moving forward. And when I worked at the bank, my two favorite phrases to hear people say was either that's a lot of money or that's not a lot of money. Because it could be $100,000, and that's a lot of money. But for someone else, like Dave, that's not a lot of money.
It's chump change.
Yeah, right. That's exactly what I'd say.
Or it could be $100, and someone's like, oh, that's not a lot of money. And then someone else says, like Dave,
I like being in this position here.
oh, that's not, that's a lot of money.
So you like being able to see what the perspective was?
Right.
Okay.
And so, yeah, everyone's nervous talking to me. And, my number one job of any first client interaction is building trust, because I need them to tell me everything, because I can't help them unless I know it all. Not that I'm a doctor, but it's similar to being a doctor. Like, where does it hurt? Tell me all the places that it hurts.
Yeah.
And then we'll figure out the plan. And the truth is, I've worked in finance or in banking for almost over 10 years now, actually. So I've seen a lot. Like, you're not going to surprise me if you have a a boba tea habit. That's not going to scare me. If you have 10 credit cards and they're all maxed out, I've seen it. If you have $10 million, cool. I've seen that one too. So it's a hurdle no matter what. What's funny is when people are in a good financial place and they're still like self-conscious. Like, ooh, I don't want to tell you how much money I have. I don't know if maybe they think I'm going to take it. I don't know. but they get a little, I can't tell you everything. So
Thanks for spending time with us at Extremely Valid Points Podcast. To learn more about this episode, see our show notes at extremelyvalidpoints.com. Be sure and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen. Follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram at EVP_podcast.
If you need help with your video for your business or nonprofit, connect with Dave at ellipsispro.co.
And if you need help with digital marketing, Nathan and Jenny can be found at worldlightmedia.com.
Or feel free to send us an email at questions@extremelyvalidpoints.com. Thanks again for joining us. See you next time.